they tell me that the reason they call it maple spread is they don't want to confuse anyone to think that it has a dairy product in it. And I should have mentioned clear back when I was talking about boiling our sap. We do have to use a defoamer to keep the syrup from boiling, or sap boiling way up in the pan. Anytime you are making anything out of the syrup, a little bit of butter or vegetable oil will keep it from boiling up so high. But I cannot use anything like that. I have to use the defoamers because some people can't eat dairy. So our products all have, and all of my labels have to say that they are made near peanuts, because I have peanuts in my facility. And, well, I don't know whether, probably some of the closer ones here can even smell peanut butter, or peanut butter. And there are some people that are so allergic to peanut butter and peanuts that even airborne, you know, so my labels have to say that they're made near peanuts.
How many spigots do you put in a tree?
Usually one.
Just one?
He has some trees. There's never a tree that is tapped until it is 10 inches across.
Right, right.
The majority of our trees probably are one. I don't think he has any trees that would probably have more than 3. You probably, when you see roadside trees, you'll see buckets hung all the way around that tree. That's not, and the roadside trees have a much higher percentage of sugar, probably up as high as 4%, where our woods run about, oh, if we get a 2% run, we're considering ourselves lucky. The reason for that is in the woods, the tree, well, anywhere, the trees get their sugar from the leaves. In the woods, a tree would have a very small canopy, which is the top of the tree. And along the roads, I mean, there's no competition, so they have huge canopies that puts more sugar into the sap that they are boiling. But ours are all wood trees, and like I said, we would probably average about a 1.7%, whereas they may go all the way up to 3.5, 3, or even 4%. Yes.
What do you filter out when you filter the maple syrup? What things are you filtering out of it? And also, the other question is, how long would an unopened container be able to be stored, and how do you store it?
That is a hot pack product that can be stored on your shelf until you open it. Indefinitely. You know, and syrup is one of the things that never gets bad. Even if it gets mold on top of it, you skim it off, you reheat it, filter it through cheesecloth, and it's good to go. And your other question, what are we filtering out?
What are you filtering out of it?
Well, basically, when you boil syrup, probably its minerals and stuff like that become suspended in the syrup, when I talked about our reverse flow, we call it niter. It settles to the bottom and it would burn because it gets hard just like sand. And that's what you're filtering out of the syrup. And years ago, when they did it with buckets, you could be filtering a lot of other things out of it. I like to say that the way we do our syrup is to compare it with milking systems. Years ago, they milked the cow, they dumped the milk into a bucket, they carried it to the milk house and dumped it in the strainer. They hoped that there weren't too many flies that landed in that bucket, and they sure hoped that a cow didn't decide to relieve herself as you're walking by. And then they went to pipelines and parlors, and the milker is put on the cow, the farmer's hand never touches it, the flies never touch it, all of this good stuff. Well, with the tubing, that sap comes out of the tree, into the tubing, through the strainers or filters, into the storage tank. It's filtered twice more when it goes through the RO, because the RO, the membrane in that, are very expensive, and you sure don't want to be plugging them up with anything. And then it is filtered again after it is boiled. And for ours, it is filtered again when we reheat it, because every time you heat syrup over 180 degrees, more niter will come out of your syrup. Any other questions?
Not a question, but one time you told me in order to keep it longer, you could put it in the freezer.
Oh, yes,
and it never became solid.
It never
which
will.
amazed me, and it was true.
Okay, because syrup, it has to be 66 brick. I don't know. Maybe somebody could tell me what bricks are. I don't know. Our hydrometer tells what brick is. But with that much sugar in that syrup, it will never freeze solid. That's why when you freeze the syrup, because it's a very easy way to keep it, freeze it in the container you got it in, or freeze it in a canning jar. Never freeze it in a freezer bag, because if you put it into a freezer bag, even though it says that it's a freezer bag, if that freezer bag ever got ruptured or opened, you would have it all over your freezer. You can also, well, that's not a good example. Like Glad.
Can you freeze that cream too?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
My cream is frozen right when I make it. It goes into my freezer, because that way, this will, if you leave it set, even in the refrigerator, it will start to separate, because I do not add the extra things to it. But Glad, there's, well, Tupperware, there's hard plastic containers that you can freeze them in those type of containers, but never a plastic bag. If you made this at home and you did it with a beater, it would be stirred a little better. I've still got a little bit of peanut butter that's Okay, we will.